Now, just over a week from now, Ethiopia's exports to the United States will no longer enjoy duty-free, quota-free access to the world's biggest economy. Now, the move was announced in early November by President Joe Biden. In a letter to American lawmakers, he said that Ethiopia was not in compliance with AGOA given, quote, gross violations of human rights, end of quotes. Now, the conflict between the federal government and the TPLF in the north of the country has been running for 13 months now, with millions of Ethiopians at risk of starvation. TPLF forces, in fact, have been pushed back into Tigray province. January 1st is now just 8 days away. If AGOA access is indeed revoked as planned, what effect would that have on one of Africa's most populous countries? I explored that with Zemedene Negatu some hours ago.
As of now, because as I said earlier, Ethiopia just started in that path only a few years ago, compared to the potential of what the AGOA benefit would deliver for Ethiopia, is still relatively low in terms of exports. I think the focus is forward-looking. In other words, if the trend continues, large FDI into these industrial parks and other Ethiopia's productivity increases in other areas that export to the United States, you can see that something like the $200 million or so in AGOA exports today could top $1 billion in just a few years, maybe 3-4 years. Ethiopia could top $1 billion, even more.
It almost sounds like you're agreeing with Charles Robertson at Renaissance Capital, because when this story broke in November, in a note that he sent out, he said, I mean, this looks, in his words, this sounds worse than it actually is, because the data does show that roughly 7% of Ethiopia's exports around 2018, 2019 went over to the United States. And a certain percentage of that, wasn't the majority, that actually got into the market based on AGOA eligibility. So arguably the harm, at least in the short term, might be limited.
Right. So my good friend Charlie, I saw his comments. I think we need to put these things in perspective, meaning at the moment, compared to the potential, it's true, the export is relatively small. But Ethiopia is just getting started. And that's, I think, what we need to focus on. Let me put something in context, though. Even today, there was a study, a report put out by the American Chamber of Commerce in Addis in Ethiopia about 2-3 months ago. I actually participated in a press conference and they released that data. Today, 200,000 Ethiopians directly benefit from jobs linked to AGOA exports. 200,000. Of those, it's mostly in the apparel industry. Of those, I would say 90%, 95% of them are young women. A lot of them are mothers. This is their first job, probably, a formal job. And secondly, they have now become the primary paycheck earner for their family. In fact, they might be the sole paycheck earner in their family. So even as we said, the potential in the future is what we're focusing on. Even today, what's on the ground is generating 200,000 jobs directly, and then another 1 million jobs indirectly. So what we're talking about is already the 1.2 million Ethiopians who are now, whose jobs, whose livelihood is linked to Ethiopia's AGOA eligibility and continuous participation.
Given the scale of the economic damage, the human cost, for lack of a better word, that would be implied by cutting off AGOA access. I mean, this does seem like a self-defeating move by the United States, because it doesn't really advance any efforts to try and get a resolution, for lack of a better word, to the civil war up north.
Rama, excellent point. And this is what many of us have been trying to convey to policymakers here in Washington, the executive branch, as well as in the legislative branch. And we've been lobbying very hard to indicate to them, here's the United States giving $1 billion in aid to Ethiopia every year. That's the official figure, to help Ethiopians bootstrap and transform their lives and other humanitarian, $1 billion. But on the other hand, how does this benefit the United States when you're going to put 1.2 million Ethiopians out of a job? You're going to put them in permanent unemployment.
So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the White House doesn't change course and AGOA access is essentially revoked on the 1st of January 2022. How will that affect the price competitiveness of exports from Ethiopia, considering the fact that the country is not a member of the WTO?
So let me give you an example. So a T-shirt all things being equal, a T-shirt manufactured in Bangladesh or Vietnam, compared to a T-shirt manufactured in Ethiopia, enters the United States at about 20, 25, 30%. I don't know the exact number, duty advantage. So a $10 T-shirt on a rack in the shelves here in a big department store, if it sells for $10, made in Ethiopia, a Vietnamese or Bangladeshi T-shirt will sell for $12.50 or $13. That's a $2.50, $3 difference. That is big. Okay. Now I'm simplifying it just for explanation purposes because there's a lot of other factors that go into the price determination, the logistics, the efficiency, and all that. Now, so the thing is, if Ethiopia is given another 3 to 5 years, the efficiency of the factories in Ethiopia can actually match or maybe even exceed what we see in other Southeast Asian countries. Because Ethiopia actually has no competitor in this sector in Africa. So I'm not using African countries as an example. I'm looking at Southeast Asia and Vietnam and Bangladesh because big garment manufacturers and those things. So that duty-free advantage actually is extremely important.